That's okay. Send somebody a blessing. These are our companions. We're together. We're family here. Yes, peace, Taylor. So we are in this together, and it is important to sometimes take a pause and slow it down. And slow down so that way we do not, pardon me, do not miss a thing. It has been my experience over the years that one of the ways that I have seen differently in my life, that I have caught a new vision, is by slowing it down, and taking those moments of respite and pause very seriously. And so that is why we take the breath here. That is why each part of this service is actually carefully crafted. Even the mission statement, even the vision statement. We read those things to ground us and to center us, and also to remind us what we're doing here. Because this isn't your average, forgive me, let me remove that word average. What I meant to say was, this hasn't been around for many, many years, like say a Methodist church, or like if you were to go into a synagogue somewhere. So we have to ground ourselves, and to use Manny's word of intention, we have to be very intentional and focus on what we're doing here. We just came out of the Paratechnique series, and there were 5 steps to that, and I won't go over that again tonight. But what we are entering now, my friends, is the Spirituality of Agitation series. The Spirituality of Agitation series. So for those of you teachers, you might know about the zones of learning, and even if you're not a teacher, you might know about the zones of learning. And what the zones of learning are, feel this with me now, there is the comfort zone circle, there is a discomfort zone circle, and then there is an alarm zone circle. So when we are learning, we don't actually want to be in the comfort zone, because we don't learn there. It is actually when we are in the discomfort, or like I was just saying a moment ago, the agitation, that we are able to take on new ideas and new thoughts and have a new vision. However, if we go into the alarm zone, we shut down and we're too triggered. So it's kind of a paralytic feeling. Sort of an interesting thing trying to find the sweet spot on this. See, we've been in this comfort zone, some of us, not all of us, but a lot of us, especially those of us with skin privilege, let's face it, we've been in a comfort zone. And I think what the pandemic really afforded, and I'm not saying this in a way of whoopee-doo, great that we're in this pandemic. I think something happened in that we had to pause. We had to slow it down, so just said a moment ago. And so that way, when the horrible murder of George Floyd happened, all of a sudden people began to notice what has been going on for so very long. Some, not everybody, which is wild, that still not everybody is seeing the truth. Stick with me, please. I want to go in the right direction tonight so that this really is a blessing for you. So we have this opportunity every single day, pandemic or no pandemic, movement for racial justice or no movement. We have an opportunity every day that we wake up and breathe to actually choose hope, like Chris brought in, to actually choose love, like this ministry and movement sits upon, and not just any love, but an agape love, a higher love, and highest love. So that is our choice every day. But we sometimes are going to have to be a little bit agitated, some of us, because some of you, we can be very experiential learners. Sometimes it takes a little agitation to set us right and to see in a glorious new way, a new vision. So let us ground. Let us practice a couple of things right now, because before I disorient you, if that happens, we must be responsible, yes? And I must be responsible and actually say, let us ground first before we become agitated enough to expand out and have a new vision. So let's be responsible and let us ground. And I'd like you to, if I think most of us, yes, we're all seated. So even if you're lying down, just rest and let your body sink. And feel your feet on the ground. And take another breath. And breathe it out. And let's try it again. Let us breathe in. And out. And one more time, breathing in and breathing out. And I can't help but say this, my friends, that remember, we're breathing for folks that no longer are. You know, this is a privilege that we are still here breathing. It's a real privilege. It's an honor. And so with that intention now of grounding, I'm going to ask you 2 questions that I don't know. I'm not sure how they will find you. I'm not sure how it will land for you. I will ask you this first. How many of you have experienced violence? And raise your hand if you're comfortable. And how many of you have been violent? And raise your hand if you're comfortable. My friends, we need a new paradigm. All of us, we have to make the asks bigger. I say this over and over again. I've been saying it for years. We have to have a new paradigm and a new vision. And so everything needs to be researched and looked over again. Let me tell you something. My life was fettered with violence in the earlier parts, as far as direct violence. So I experienced a lot of abuse. I experienced a lot of different things. We don't need to go into that story right now. However, it is important because it did inform much of what I'm doing here with you all tonight. You see, when I began to come out of the violence, at least the direct experiences of it, the healing began to happen and the shifts began to happen. And I started to see in a new way. I started to have a new vision. It was a very long process, but there was a new vision that began to happen for me. Now I'm going to ask you those questions again, but I'm going to read a definition that Manny is going to put in the chat. A definition of violence that changed my life many years ago when I first began working with Pace Bene, which is a nonviolent nonprofit service. Please look them up, pacebene.org. They do really, really incredible work. And so that definition is this, and I am going to reference it over here. Violence is any physical, emotional, institutional, structural, or spiritual behavior, attitude, policy, or condition that diminishes, dominates, or destroys ourselves or others. That's a very different definition See, people are still often running around thinking that violence is solely physical, that it's getting in a fight at a bar, or that it's war, and it's not. And we have to be, if we are truly going to be agents of change and peace, we actually have to name the nemesis and be very clear about it. And it's not a downer. You know, I texted Chris today and I said, I wonder how many returning people are going to be at the service after the sermon on violence, because it's not a fun topic. And as a pastor, you know, my job is really to love you from the highest place and make you feel good, you know, create connection here on Sundays. And I do that. I model that for you. And I do it because I love to do it, because I truly mean it. I truly do love you all. I truly care about your well-being. And that's why we as a team pray throughout the week. And it's because of that highest love that I would be remiss if I also didn't bring this piece in tonight. Because one of the other legs of this ministry and movement called the Revolution of Love is to name the, okay, I won't swear. I was going to swear, the violence. And to be totally clear about it. And so violence, once again, let's look at the definition. Violence is any physical, emotional, institutional, structural, or spiritual behavior, attitude, policy, or condition that diminishes, dominates, destroys ourselves or others. So I'm going to ask you those two questions again. And if you're comfortable, and it may not feel right to raise your hand, but it's an interesting noticing, I think, if you look around and see how many people do. How many of you have experienced some form of violence that would relate to that definition? And then how many of you, let's go even deeper with this, because this is the good stuff. How many of you have been violent according to this definition? So this is the stuff, my friends. This is the stuff. We have to look within and excavate these places and get real about it. Do you know, when I went to UC Berkeley and I was studying this stuff years back, one of the majors I studied was peace and conflict studies. That was one of them. And the peace part was not in the major. We never studied peace. We studied violence. We studied all different kinds of boy soldiers and the Holocaust and structural violence and poverty. In fact, my paper that I did was on folks experiencing homelessness in San Francisco for a full semester. That's all I studied, was chronic homelessness. We must be agitated and take this pause. And let's be very abundantly clear now as to why. So we can have a new vision. So I'm sort of relentless. And I know my friend Peter and my parents are on this call, and these are people that have known me for years. And they would vouch and say that I am a lot of fun at parties with the religion piece and the politics, which I don't look at any of this as politics. I look at this as humanity. This is about people's lives. This is about a planet that is dying. That's how clear it is for me. And so what I was going to say was that I'm relentless as far as naming things, as far as naming the different kinds of violence. Chris and I talk a lot about domestic violence. Name it. Name it. We talk a lot about, I just named poverty. Mylene goes every Saturday. I hope I don't embarrass her right now, but she feeds folks that are experiencing homelessness. That's a form of violence that she is witnessing. And she is doing the difference by bringing food and nourishing them. Bless her. Drug addiction. That is a form of violence. According to this definition, addiction is a form of violence. Any kind of addiction, my friends, when we are in a lower level of consciousness, that is diminishing to ourselves, that is a form of violence. And that's primarily what I was inferring, what I was intimating about my own self. After the violent folks left my life, I had internalized that violence so much, I needed to keep doing it. And so I found ways. I became an addict. Do you know that when kids get rescued, boy soldiers actually, going back to the boy soldiers example, when they often get rescued, do you know that they actually try and kill each other? Because they don't know any better because of the violence. The violence that has been perpetrated upon them, that they've been forced to carry out, when they are now in a place of calm, their poor systems don't know what to do. And so they try and hurt each other. I know this is hard. It could be really hard for some of you, but we have to be real here. This is not your everyday ministry or movement, and it's not meant to be. And we don't want to settle anymore. Who wants to settle for what's going on? Who wants to keep on getting, what is going on in this country alone? I don't think any of you, right? No. Okay, so this is going to be a series in the coming weeks. And the first thing I want to ask all of us to do is to be willing to get uncomfortable, that place of agitation, that discomfort bubble I mentioned, and to begin to see things that you have not seen. Remember, I do the God goggles a lot, and I actually did pull them out. Bishop texted me earlier this week and said, you might be onto something with this God goggle thing. See, the God goggles, the scales fall off of our eyes, and we can start seeing in a new way. I want you to see examples of violence according to this definition. Now, I know some of you, you've been experiencing violence depending upon where you're at. If you are in a community that is under threat and attack, please know that I honor that. I'm making space for that right now. And I want to say this, that all of us have experienced and are experiencing violence. You know why? Because since we were born, we have been in a class called Violence 101. Heck, you can go to the market, and if you go down by the newsstands, guns and ammo magazines are at a lower level where kids can see those. That's what kids are taking in. That's what we see every day. And it conditions our minds. And we think, what happens? We think it's okay. We start to normalize it. We start to condition, it just conditions us. And so it's not until the really big stuff happens that we go, oh my gosh, this is terrible. See, we need to nip it in the bud. Do you feel this? Please tell me you do. I really pray you do. Because this is so critical, my friends. See, the second we begin to see, good, I'm so glad, bless you, because it's so courageous. Some people will never come out of this matrix. And then some of you that have been directly experiencing threat and attack, that are scared literally for your lives. And maybe it's because of your racial identity. Maybe it's because of your orientation. Maybe it's because of your gender. This takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to continue to just wake up. And as I said to you last Sunday, to just stay alive. So we stay in the fight. We stay in the fight and we continue to see everything. We name these different pockets of violence that are around us, in the structures, in the culture, and in ourselves. That's the real, whoa. And you go, oh, wow, I just thought that. Wow, I'm holding this belief. Okay. Tonight, I just want us to become more aware of it than we've ever been. There will be more as far as what we can do, because there's so many opportunities of what we can do and the actions that we can take to heal radically. But tonight, this is just flow with me in this place of noticing. And you're not going to end it. Please let us not end it here. Let us continue to be relentless and pursue it and notice. And I know it's impacted my parents, actually, and I don't want to embarrass them either, but I have worked over the years pressing and bringing examples. Do you see this? Do you notice that? Do you see this? Look at that. And it's impacted them too. New vision, my friends. Because from this spark of new vision is where we can launch and create something different. See, that's the beauty. This isn't bad news. This is actually where we are rising up to the branches of our tree from a higher perspective, going, yeah, we've all been victims of and perpetrators. But when we rise up, when we say, okay, I see this and I choose differently, I choose to heal, I choose to see anew, then we can rise up and see from a whole different perspective. That's a whole different ballgame. And you know what happens when you see from the branches of a tree versus down below? You get to see all of the beauty as well. See, it's not just one thing or another. There's a lot of swinging, what they call split psychology. You see this all the time. It's either or, black or white thinking. It ain't that, my friends. We see and notice these icky parts and this injustice, the violence, and we also see the beauty. We also see the random acts of kindness. So this is one of the reasons why I love our Sunday nights, because I get to be here with all of you. I want us to lift up that right now, that this is connection that we didn't have before. Not like this. See, it's not just this or that. You see me? You see, it's all of it. Chris talked about hope. There's much hope here. Don't let anybody ever tell you differently. There's immense hope and there's immense possibilities to create change. So notice, be ready to take on a new vision and recognize that it's okay to be agitated a little bit. This is one of the first ways we will create, and we are creating, a revolution of love. Amen. Amen. Let us draw together for a word of prayer. And if you would like to put those prayer requests now, and I would like us to fall within even deeper than we have been. And let us ask for